Hello, fellow parents and educators. Thank you for joining me at Education Evolution, where we are disrupting the status quo in today's learning models. We talk about present-day education, what's broken, who's fixing it, and how. I'm Dr. Maureen O'Shaughnessy, your host and founder of Education Evolution and the Microschool Coalition, where we are fiercely committed to changing the narrative, to reimagining the education landscape and creating learning that serves all children and prepares them to thrive. Welcome, Education Evolution audience. It is so great to have another time to share with you. I am thrilled today to have two of the students of my microschool join us. They both attend LEADPrep and both started in 7th grade, and they're now in 10th and 11th grade. Student voice is a huge part of our microschool, so it's my pleasure to welcome our 10th grade student, Frankie Rosner, and our 11th grade student, Max Pierce.
Well, we're very happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to talk about our experience as students at LEADPrep.
Yeah, my pleasure, you guys. And you're fun. I, of course, picked students that are fun, and all of my students are fun, but you guys totally are there. I want to start by asking you both, what do you think works best about being in a microschool? Because you were both in larger public schools at one time. What's working best for you guys?
Well, for me, it would probably have to be, like you said, how small the school is and how it's really more of a personal learning environment than a teacher talking at the class. You really feel a connection with all your teachers. You feel like you can trust them with practically anything you tell them, or if you ever have an issue in a class or something, you know they're going to be with you at that moment to help you out, no matter how hard the problem is, or they'll never make you feel dumb for getting a problem wrong that could be a relatively easy problem to someone else. They're just always there to assist you whenever you need to be assisted.
So that teacher connection is a really important part of the smaller setting for you, Max. How about you, Frankie?
Well, obviously the teacher connection, not obviously, but it's a big thing for me. But the other thing that also has to do with teachers is with such a small ratio, they can really dive into what projects they want to assign. And like, I remember my last year of public school, we were learning history. And I remember just sitting there thinking, this is everything that's ever happened in the world. How is it this boring? It's like when you're learning from a textbook and all the kids have to be in the same place at the same time. It's really, really hard to be passionate about it. But when we have a lot more teachers and a smaller class size, basically every single project we do is fun and it's able to be tailored to our specific interests. So I really feel like I'm learning twice as much and having twice the fun that I would be in a bigger school.
You do realize that's a part of our diabolical plan to make it fun. It's like tricking kids into eating their vegetables. So our teachers love tricking you guys into learning. And when you guys get to have such a say in what you're focusing on and get to bring your strengths into it, you learn so much more, and you're still doing research, or you're still doing writing, or you're still doing STEM designing. So it's a win-win. And I'm glad that those are features that work for you. So I have another question that kind of builds on the relationship piece that you both just addressed. I know relationships are much stronger when it's smaller. We all do better and can make close relationships when we don't have hundreds of students. But how have these teacher relationships impacted our shift to remote learning while we're practicing social distancing?
Well, if I may hop in first, after I left public school because I was really struggling, I did online school for a while, and there were these weekly video meetings we were supposed to do to connect. And I believe after doing school online for 2 years, I went to one of these meetings because it was just kind of awful. I didn't know any of these people, and I was really insecure because I was really young, and it was just so awkward to be on the computer with all these people. But I remember the first day I logged into doing our online school on Zoom, and I was like, this isn't super different because every single one of these people, I know them and I have this connection. So even if I'm not seeing their face on the camera, just hearing their voice, it's like, that's the person I know in real time. And it's like this connection really makes it so you can just get right back into it instead of like feeling like you're watching a YouTube tutorial on how to do a math problem.
Nice. So the personal touch and knowing the players has made it a lot easier for you to shift, it sounds like.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice. So Max, how about you?
It's been pretty awesome. I've always wanted to try the online school, and I never really had the courage to, because like Frankie said, I wouldn't know anybody personally. I just know them through a little screen, and I would only talk to them about schoolwork and everything. But after gaining that personal connection with all my teachers and transitioning into online, I feel like it's moved really smoothly, and I couldn't ask for a better way to do online learning. I feel like I'm still being helped in every way possible. It really just feels like I'm still in the classroom, but in the comfort of my own home.
Perfect. And Max, that reminds me, you have taken part in what Washington State calls Running Start and done a dual enrollment to college. You've done multiple college classes that we offer 11th and 12th graders. So we started you out with three other students doing English 101 online in the fall. And I'm curious because you chose to go ahead and redo it and do it face to face. So online, when you were trying that kind of just cold start in the fall, what do you think some of the drawbacks were?
Well, I just feel, like I said before, I just feel like I didn't have that connection with my teacher. And we didn't even do video calls. We just looked at our Canvas and did what we were supposed to be doing with just written instructions. And I never had that Zoom meeting or face-to-face time with my teacher. And it was really hard to get my teacher to answer emails right away because I always had questions, and trying to get those questions answered was very difficult. And I just feel like that gave me the online school experience that I was kind of afraid of when looking at new schools back in the 7th grade. And it really worried me that I was going to fail this English class because I didn't know my teacher at all.
You know what? I think it's really important. I'm glad you both have had prior online class experience, because I think it's really important to myth bust the idea that like, oh guys, look, school's fine online. Why do we even have to have real-time schools? We could just make everything online and save lots of money on buildings. But you're both saying online was not a good experience for you initially, and what made it work for you in this social distancing is the relationships, knowing the people, being heard, getting to personalize it. So you're both really good mythbusters that online can just be a future solution for everybody, because I guess we're all saying we don't want that. Is that accurate?
Yes, very.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to shift it just a little bit. And I'm just wondering how you guys are doing and how your friends are doing with all of this change. Right now, as we're having this conversation, it's been over 6 weeks of being social distanced. How are you guys?
So I've really enjoyed, well, I guess I shouldn't say enjoyed quarantine. I've enjoyed social distancing. I've just been going on social distanced walks with my friend Allie and my dog pretty much daily. So I feel like I'm still getting that outdoors time, and it's away from people. We're on a trail in the middle of the woods or something, and we're just away from everybody else. I still have that outside connection with my friend, and it's been nice because the roads have been clear, the parks have been clear, and I feel like my internet has been running a little slower just because everybody's using it, but it's just been a really calm experience, and I'm happy it's happening when I'm a junior and not a senior, so I wouldn't be missing out on all those great opportunities that a senior gets. And I feel just terrible for all those seniors right now.
Yeah. How about our friends, you guys? I think both of you are pretty solid and navigating this really well. What are you hearing about some friends without saying any names?
Well, my kind of inner group and I, we've been doing a weekly, or not weekly because we actually end up doing it almost every day, but we do Zoom calls. And like one of my friends, she lives with her grandmother, and her grandmother is very high risk. So neither of them have actually left their house other than she's gone on some walks since this started. So she's kind of got a different perspective of her neighbors have to go and shop for them. And she's just been, one thing that was funny is we were comparing, your phone gives you these little alerts if you have an iPhone on how your screen time has gone up and what your average was this week. And a couple weeks ago, I get a text from her. She's like, okay, Apple needs to stop doing this. It's just rude. I don't need to know that I spent 9 hours on my phone. I know that. I don't need to see it affirmed. I'm like, you know what? You're right. I don't need to see that.
Yeah. So everybody has different challenges, and it's a tricky time. I know some of our students, it's been almost a mental health issue for them, and it's been really, really hard on them. So I just send out good energy to all of the kids and their parents as we get through this. I have one last question for each of you. So Frankie, I am going to start with you. Frankie, we know learning can be so much more and more kids can have success. So if you had a magic wand for how you might change the whole education world for other sophomores, what would you wish were happening in learning for them?
Well, what I wish is that we could go back a little bit. So let me explain that because it sounds kind of weird. So I volunteer with working with special needs toddlers at Kindering, and there's a couple classes that they have, and there's only like 8 kids. And a lot of them, there's one who I believe has Down syndrome, and there's a couple who appear to be on the autism spectrum like me. And one thing that I just think about every time I go and they have this playtime and they get to interact with the teachers, and it's like, I wonder if my education journey would have been so much smoother if I was in a supportive classroom environment since the time I was 3. Like if all that early education when you're in preschool, when you're in kindergarten, the first, second, even third grade, if we could really work to make it welcoming and fun and have play times and have snack times and not try to teach our kids to sit at a desk and learn to be comfortable with that, I think it would really kind of change not necessarily what we do when kids get older, but how they feel about stepping into a school when they're older. Because sometimes when you've been conditioned for years and years to just sit at a desk and look at your book, it's really hard to admit that you're having a hard time because everyone else seems to be doing fine and you don't kind of want to single out as the person who this isn't working for. But it just kind of makes you dread it when it's monotonous and you're doing the same thing over and over. And I just really wish we could kind of change the early education so that a lot of the problems that kids me and Max's age are having don't have to happen.
Love it. That whole foundational piece. And there are countries in Northern Europe that don't even start on content and reading and writing until the kids are 7 or 8. And then they dive in and the kids are doing it in like 3 different languages. So I think you're really onto something. Our foundational years could really be focused on play and on community and on welcoming. Thank you. Max, your turn. If you had a magic wand for other high school students like you that are almost seniors and are gearing up for college, what do you wish would be different for their experience? What would you wish with your magic wand?
So I have a question about this question.
Yes.
So are we talking about other, like, kids from other schools or like other countries, or what are we?
You know, really, it can be anything you want, but if you had the ideal end of 11th, beginning of 12th grade year possible for all students your age, what would you want that to look like? What would be different?
Well, given the fact that we're all in quarantine right now, I really wish that there were some opportunities for students to maybe join a meeting or something with a bunch of other kids and kind of interact with them, talk about college, talk about, just have an outlet for them to talk to their friends in their class or something. But educationally, I would probably have to say I wish that other kids could have the help that we receive at LEADPrep, and I wish that they could have the sources for reading, writing, math, whatever problems they have. Like, I wish every other kid on the planet could have the assistance that I had while struggling back in middle school. And I'm sure that there are even more people struggling in high school now because of this whole online learning deal. But I really just wish that everybody could have that one helper or that one friend that could really be there for them, to talk to help them with whatever problems they may have.
I love that. Both that community aspect where people to talk to, a friend to help you, and also that learner-centered where whatever your needs are, especially middle school kids, because they're going through a lot of emotional roller coasters. So yeah, a more learner-centered system that could meet them where they are and give them that help in their math and in their other subjects. So I think you both have awesome magic wands. And I really want to thank you for spending time on your Friday afternoon to come and share your ideas. So thank you, Max and Frankie.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
No problem. I really enjoyed being able to share my thoughts and experiences with you and all the listeners. And so, yeah, thank you for giving me that opportunity.
My pleasure. You guys have a great weekend.
You too.
I have the best job in the universe. I love getting to work with our amazing kids and getting to be in a progressive school where we're constantly finding more ways to be learner-centered. Over my career, I have led a variety of public and private schools, both internationally and in Washington State. This vast experience has allowed me to support teams in innovating in a wide variety of settings. Continuing to research best practices and apply all of this knowledge into my micro school and the schools and programs where I consult is very fun and rewarding. See the show notes for a link to a free consulting call with me. Fostering student success and connecting with great students like Max and Frankie today is an absolute pleasure. There's not really a lot to unpack, although I did find their magic wands to be really interesting. Frankie talking about what if we started education differently? What if we had 8 kids in a group and we could play and be welcomed? What if neurodiversity were celebrated? And what if we weren't conditioned to be passively compliant and sitting in our desks? I thought that was interesting that he went backwards for his magic wand instead of for high school, what he might do. I'm also going to pull some statistics and put them in the show notes because how those early years are formed is so different. When I worked in South America and my daughter was in the local preschool, she was given a brown or a black crayon and told to color in the cat. No option to have purple polka dots on her kitty cat. So some schools and systems and cultures are really, really structured. And I know Northern Europe has a delay in starting formal reading and writing, and then the kids are developmentally ready and just zoom and are doing it in multiple languages. And by the end of elementary are ahead of us in the US and doing it in more than one language. So I want to pull something and put that in the show notes. Another thing that I thought was interesting that is something that's so normal at LEADPrep is there's no shaming at our school. Kids feel really safe. And one public school district actually pays us public school funds and says we have a therapeutic milieu and are a sanctuary. And when it's small and caring, labels don't matter. When it's multi-age, grades don't matter. So when he just threw in, and other people that have autism like I do, blah, 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 it was no big deal. That's not my experience. When I have other families talking, they will and he has autism. Or I'll get a new student, and this happened a lot overseas. I'd have a student, it's like, oh my gosh, they have not even shared with us that this student has autism, and we were flying blind. So I really appreciate that it's just like no big deal in our school's culture. And I wish labels were no big deal in every school's culture. Thinking about Max's magic wand, I like his empathy on, wow, wouldn't it be nice for all of the kids right now getting ready to graduate to be able to connect and share their concerns and be supported and share their disappointment that they're not going to get probably the big graduation and walking across stage and switching their tassels over, that he has empathy for his fellow classmates, and also that he can recognize how important it was for him to have a learner-centered experience in middle school. That kiddo in 7th grade had more energy in his pinky than I've had in the last 20 years. And getting to run around the building before math and getting things, redirected and getting things in the right quantity for him to show how smart he was learner-centered. So for him to say that he wishes for middle school kids, when times are so tough and they're transferring from being loved up by one elementary teacher to 6 or 7 teachers and 1,000 bodies and all of this craziness, that they could be met where they were academically and get the supports that they need. I thought that was a pretty sweet magic wand too. So I'm sure you can tell I think I have the best job ever, the best students ever, and I'm really glad that I get to be in a school that feels like relationships are the most important and that the learning comes because of those strong relationships and that trust. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thanks again for listening. To support the education evolution, subscribe so it lands in your podcast app and gets out to more decision makers. Then rate and review it. For more information and show notes, go to educationevolution.org. Education Evolution listeners, you are the ones to ensure we create classrooms where each student is seen, heard, valued, and thriving. We are in this together, and we need you. Let's go out and reach every student today. Thank you for listening. Signing off, I am Maureen O'Shaughnessy, your partner in boldly reimagining education.